G'day guys, what's cracking? Today I have for you the FEELWORLD P6XL Field Camera Monitor, which is the first of its kind to ever be released with a built-in battery. We'll talk about that more, and it also has this epic feature that you're going to have to wait through the video to hear about and for me to explain. Now that I've annoyed you, it's a 6-inch monitor, it's 17mm thick and is 332 grams, and with a built-in battery makes it light, sleek, portable, and a monitor you can take anywhere for very little hassle. Rated at 1200 nits, and if you're like, what does that mean? It's like a really bright phone that you take outside. So you put your phone on its brightest, you take it out, and that's what 1200 nits is. The brightness of such a small, internal battery powered and cheap, budget friendly unit is very, very impressive. Has 8-bit color, which shows 16.7 million colors, which is not amazing, but totally fine for a field monitor. Has 1000:1 contrast, which means the blacks aren't super black and the whites aren't super white, but it's pretty close and effective for what you'll need it. An 160-degree viewing angle, so you can view it on the side. The biggest downfall is actually its biggest strength, and that is the internal battery. It has 22.2 watt hours of energy at 7.4 volts. And what that means is it will power at 100% for 2 hours, and it will take 2 hours to recharge it. Frequently with these monitors, you have an extra battery or two that you put on. And so they're usually larger, you plonk in your battery, and it's effective. But it's also cumbersome, because that means you need to take a pack that's much bigger than this. You can just take this, and there's a few accessories that we'll get to in a minute, and go. With other monitors, you need a battery that you plug in, so you need to carry your batteries, so you need to keep your battery safe. But you don't want your battery separate from your monitor, so you need a little pouch that you put them in to make sure it's all together. It just takes up more space. So it's really handy when it comes to saving space. So the internal battery means you can run and gun, let's go real quick without mucking about or worrying about it. With all things, you have to make sure it's charged up. But I charged this up to 100%, and when I turned it on to use it today, so I charged it yesterday 100% for 6-8 hours. Today, when I turned it on, it started at 40%, and then it declined to 20%, and then it went to 0%. And here's the challenge. It goes in 20% increments, so you never know exactly how much you've got. This at the moment says 0%, but it's still on, as you can see. It was started at 40%, it should have started at 100%. So I'm hoping there's a firmware update to just jig all this around and make sure that the percentage of battery keeps up with the actual battery. Because what you do need to know is if you've got 3% or 19%, right? That's quite a difficult thing. Or whether you've got 0% or 19%. So I wonder if it puts the percentage where that's the bottom barrier, and then it goes down to 40%, and then it goes to 20%, but that's actually 39%, and it goes down to 20%. So that's a real shortcoming, but should be an easy fix. So I'm now going to have to charge up the battery. We're going to go pump it full and see what it comes out as and see how that limit goes. Test results are in, and the battery does last for 2 hours. It does take 2 hours to charge. However, I think there's a little bit of decline that happens in the battery between when it's charged and when you use it. So my encouragement would be to use it just before a shoot, and don't have it in your bag for ages. Forget about it, take it out and expect it to work for a full 2 hours. I think you'll be a little bit disappointed. The other challenge that we have with it is because you can't add a battery. If you're out in the field and you don't have an extra battery that you can plug into, you can't just whip out these batteries and whip in another. It's all internal. And therefore, yeah, that's one of the limitations, and why I would say you buy this for small jobs that you're doing rather than large extended jobs. So I would encourage you to make the most of this band and get an external battery as a backup. Now that's not what you want to hear, right? Because you want to buy this for the result of this. But often when you buy a monitor, you then have to buy a separate battery anyway. So it is a bit of a like this, but you might be like, I'm just doing a bunch of short projects. And so this fits me perfectly. And yes, you can charge it at the same time as you use it. So you can put a separate power source into this, and away you go. At the bottom, we have a 1/4 for mounting, and we have a USB-C port that is for power. That's on the bottom. Has a USB-C here, but that's for firmware updates and putting your LUTs on. We have a HDMI in, so it plugs straight to a normal HDMI cable. We have audio out, so you can listen to exactly what the monitor's picking up, and we have our power button. On top, not much. On the other side, not much, but the bit you just hang out for in these videos is it's got the screen on, and I'm going to take the screen off. You ready? Didn't make much noise, did it? But look how clean and glossy that beast looks. Now this monitor can handle a 4K input, but we're going to talk about how that works and what it looks like in a minute, because it's not quite as simple as you might see. You see where it says 4K in the title? That doesn't mean you watch 4K. It's a 1080p ultra high definition experience you get as you watch the screen, but you don't get 4K, but it can feed in 4K, but only 4K up to 30 frames a second. Now this monitor do all sorts of waveform tests, so you can see the colors and the highlights and the shadows and all that looks like. There's a few things that are particular to this monitor. First of all, it has focus assist. That's focus peaking, so therefore it can highlight what's in focus. Then it has this tool called check field, and basically check field means you can show it in red, green, blue, and mono, and that shows you where the color balance is and the shade balances and the exposure balances. So it's a good way to make sure your shot is exposed with the color saturations as well as the light correctly. Has overexposure, you know, you get those zebra lines, so this shows you where it's overexposed. That means where it's blown out, where it's completely white, where you don't want things completely white. You want to keep the detail, so you want to lower your settings, you make it a bit darker so it picks up the detail in those lighter things. Another tool it has is false color. You're like, what is that? I don't need false colors, I want real colors. Calm down. Oh no, it's me, it's not you. False colors is like a heat map for your image, and so it translates the different exposures into different colors, and you can see where the greatest exposure and color is and change your settings to accommodate what you really want. If you are shooting with an anamorphic lens, and I wish I had an anamorphic lens to shoot with this so I could test it out, but you can put it in anamorphic mode so it doesn't swish in your image, it just presents it just splendidly. It has 1:1 pixel to pixel, so that means you can actually have a look at your detail and make sure it's nice and sharp. So if you're shooting someone's eye, like in an interview, you can make sure it's nice and sharp. Or you're shooting a sign that's a long way away, you can make sure it's nice and sharp by using the 1:1 pixel to pixel. And then the greatest thing it has. No, we're not quite there yet. And it has some fans here and fans here to prevent overheating, but that will be one of the challenges. If you're shooting on a really hot day in the sun with pushing this to its limit, you may encounter some heat challenges because of the aluminium base that it's in. So it's in a metal base, which gives it really robustness that if I drop it, I don't feel like I'm going to crush it and smash it and all that. Don't drop it. That would just be silly. But it just gives it an added sense of security. Plus it feels really, really nice. It does add to the weight, but it also adds to a nice finish on the monitor that you just like, and you want gear that you enjoy holding and using. I suppose you really want gear that just gives you the best result, but aesthetic is an important part, and there's some of you, let me know if you're an aesthetic, if you like. It needs to feel good and look good as well as do a good job. I intimated earlier that you can put your own LUTs. It comes with 6 built-in 3D LUTs, and you can put up to 32 of your extra LUTs that you choose in on it. And 3D means it can control all 3 channels at the same time. It doesn't mean that it's going to hologram out of here and be like, hey. It actually means you can change your red, your greens, and the blues all at the same time with your LUTs. You can also apply your LUT to flat or log profiles, so you can actually see how your LUT is working in real time and the effect it's having, and if that's the LUT you want for that particular piece or show or project that you're on. It seems the right moment to show you some of the other accessories that come in the box. It has a cable tie that's Velcro that just holds your cables together. If we pull this out, it has a USB-C to USB. This would be for the charging of the unit, along with this. It is nice how they've thought about everything. In my opinion, these are essential. It's how you attach your monitor by doing this. And it has a firm hold and it feels good. Then you attach this to your camera and you use your hex wrench or your Allen key to loosen this. Yeah, so that's a bit of a limitation. I would have liked this little thing to have just like a lever that you could do it, rather than needing an extra tool that you can easily lose or misplace. But you can make that quite stiff and still work for you, so I recommend doing that, and that way you're not fiddling around with other stuff when you're trying to focus on being creative. This is a cold shoe mount male, so you pop that in and then you just spin this round and it locks it into the top of your camera. They've got a USB to USB-C adapter. That's just caring. Then we have a HDMI to micro HDMI, which is to connect the monitor to your camera depending on what your camera is. So you'll need to check with your camera and make sure that you have the right connection. In a few instances in monitors in the past, I've had like not a micro but a mini HDMI on my camera, and it doesn't work on a Mac. So you can actually just get cables that easily connect from your camera to your monitor, but just be aware of that. And that's what I'd say to FEELWORLD guys, you're doing such a good job with these accessories. Just whack one of those other ones in to really help out some creators. So with this, you get a micro HDMI that plugs into your camera, and you get a full HDMI cable that plugs into your camera as well. Then we have a shade panel that holds in the lights. We'll give that a go later on. It doesn't feel very robust, but it doesn't have to. It just needs to hold out the light. There's a bracket that enables the shade cover to sit on the monitor nicely. And then we have this really cool bracket that attaches to the bottom of the monitor, and then your swivel pivot point can attach to the bottom of the clamp. But what the clamp does is it's held off the monitor and it can hold a battery. And so you can power this for days by putting a big battery or whatever battery you want. You can lock it in there, and it has easy access to the USB-C, a power adapter just here. P6XL from FEELWORLD is $200 US. And that puts it in an interesting space because of its built-in battery, and that it's bright enough to use outdoors. You would often take it outdoors. So it would be, if you're a run and gun, if you're doing a lot of smaller projects and you're out and about, it's not the high end or in the vicinity of the high-end monitors. And so to test it, I thought I'd use the Z5 II, because the Z5 II is somewhere in the vicinity of where you might pair this with. So you might go a Z6 or even a Z7. I'm not entirely sure, but you probably wouldn't go your Z8, because if you've spent all that money on a Z8, you're probably going to get a more higher end monitor than this, and I'll talk about why this isn't the highest end in just a minute. So the way I like to do this is put the mounting point on first. Now it has this cold shoe, and so we take our cover off the back of our camera, and we are mounting the cold shoe to the hot shoe of the camera, and then we're screwing it down, and then we're realizing that we've put it on the wrong way. The right way. Now we have our cable. This is the HDMI micro. Simply pop it into the side of your camera, and then this pops off and goes into your HDMI point just on the side. Then we can turn the camera on, take the lens cap off, turn the monitor on. When your camera goes on standby, the screen will follow going on standby. So you may need to change the display options that you have in your settings to ensure that it's never turns off, and that way your monitor's never going to turn off, but it also saves power as it does turn off. You'll notice this is at 40%, and yesterday I charged it to 100%, so I'm just going to keep an eye on this and see what's going on there. It might need a firmware update in due course. All right, we turn it on and it picks up our signal. Our signal is a HDMI 1080p at 60 megahertz, and I'm going to flip this over to video, and there it comes right there, looking good. I would also suggest on your HDMI functions on your camera, putting it to auto. So whatever functions you're shooting on your camera, it automatically pumps it to your 1080p ultra high def at 30 frames a second on here. So you're not limited by what your camera can do because of the monitor. And if you're struggling to see your settings, come up here, check your HDMI settings, and you should find some solutions there. I just go all auto, to be honest. Makes sense, nice and easy. Now at the moment, this is 4K at 25 frames a second. So I'm going to go to my video settings. So I'm going to change that to 4K at 60. Exceeds the monitor's ability to take what's happening in the camera and put it on the monitor. There it is, and I'm going to press record, And what we're seeing is, even though the camera is recording at 60 frames a second, we're not seeing it at 60 frames a second. We're seeing it at 1080p at 30 frames a second when it's actually recording at 4K, which is really important to be aware of, that what you're capturing is different to what you're exactly seeing with a monitor. Oh no, it's a bit tricky because you expect a monitor to show you exactly what you can see. But if I press record, it goes straight to record. I press record off, it goes blue, and then it comes back as it gathers itself. So for blue screens, don't freak out. So let me just run you through. You have a quick access to the menu down here, which you can slide along here. If you don't like that, just tap up here and double tap on the side here, and it gives you the opportunity to just choose which way you would like to monitor your image. And as you can see, there's tons of different opportunities there and tons of different ways of doing it. You can turn these things off and on. You have a vector, we can turn that on. You'll see here, turn it off. We go down here, you'll see the same. We can just build these in as we go. So they'll give you just a ton of different options, and you can have any sort of different combos that you like to achieve the results that you're really after. There's the zebraing and the highlighting, remember? So then we would just change our settings, get rid of that. We could also have all of your waveforms on at the same time. Let's take it off, and I can increase the brightness of the monitor, the backlitness of the monitor, by simply drawing this way or that, depending on what I'd like to do. And the same on this side with the volume. So the volume that comes out of it, but there is no volume that comes out directly from this. You actually need a headphone jack in the side. But the coolest function of this monitor, second to none, is that it does this. If you swipe in, it gives you these two options, and to access this you need to grab your USB, plug your USB-C adapter in, and push it into this right there. Once it's in, if you hit this, one moment please, and then it will take a photograph of this screen, right? So then you move it like this. Now here's where this is brilliant. You're then like, I want to reframe it exactly how it was. So you go this one moment please. It gives you the options to choose from. That's the photo we just took. So we're going to access that. And you see the overlay? Look at the overlay. Isn't that incredible? And I just go until it's like exactly spot on. And I go, thank you very much. Tap on here, close it down, start recording again. Is that not worth every single penny? Oh, the amount of times when you're like, I just need to, how do I line it up? And this does the function for you. You just need a USB drive that you plug into the side. Just needs to make sure it hasn't got anything on it. So don't put any firmware updates or anything. Just make sure it's empty. You don't need to format it. Just pop it in and away you go. I told you it was worth waiting for, didn't I? Like if you hung out this long for this part, oh yeah, love it when tech's good. You can also choose what markers you have on your screen and what color they are. You have a heap of different options. For example, you know, it does whatever you need it to do. So it's covered all of the functional basics and developments that you'll need. You can change your aspect ratio if you like, so you can make sure it's a 5:4, so it shoots and squishes it in to a 5:4. That's squish, doesn't it? Squishes it in, so it does squish it all in. You can just go auto. You can go anamorphic, as we talked about before. You can image flip it. You can zoom in on this. So I can zoom mode on this, and I can zoom in using the screen. I can make sure it's sharp and how it needs to be. And I'm like, oh, that's a little bit off. And then I just focus this in on the camera. Like, that's on point. Come on. And then you zoom back out, and you're raring to go. So you can actually do this real time. So while you're recording, you can record, and then you can be, I need to just zoom in on this and make sure the eye is really, really sharp. And it is, look at that, it's great. Or you can just change the focusing on that however you like. This monitor will not change the focusing. You do that on your camera. You can go HDR, so that's turned on. If I turn my HDR off, it's like that. And if I want to access my LUTs, I go up here, and I go on, and I can choose these ones that are from the table. You see the background's changing, but that's where I can access my other LUTs if I have them on my USB, and they'll be down here. And then you just press confirm to say that you want it on, or you can just turn it off if you just want to shoot log and shoot a log flat appearance and then edit it later in your software. Now you will notice, you see that? That's just gone to 0% and up to 20. Is it going back to 0? The colors are nearly perfect, but not quite. So they're a little bit off. They're not off, they're just not quite as realistic as you would like, even when you use the HDR function. But the HDR function on this really enables you to see some of the things in real time with the vibrancy and the saturation and the color tones that you would hope to get when you're looking through this. It's actually very light. So it's often, they're really quite heavy. And if you're shooting like this constantly, and see, like I can actually do this, so I can shoot down, I can look down, which is really, really good. And sometimes it gets really heavy, but it actually feels like it complements the weight and the weight balance of the camera unit rather than detracting against it. Because of its weight, you can put it on the side of a gimbal, so you can go mobile and have it add to the stabilization, not throw your stabilization off, which is really, really important. So for a long, long time, in my early YouTube days, I always said, hey, if there's anyone out there that wants to send me a monitor, this would have been the monitor I would have loved back then. I didn't deserve it back then. I don't even know if I deserve it now. But because you want a monitor for occasional use. So it might be a particular photographic thing or a particular video project you've got where you're not going to use it all the time, but when you want it, you just want something that works and is simple and is good to go. And this is a really good solution for that. I also found, just while I'm reflecting on when I started, the touch screen was a little bit sluggish. Like it was really quite sluggish. I'm like, giddy up, come on. And it really didn't want to go. I actually nearly wrote to the creators, to FEELWORLD, and said, hey, it's not working. Like, here you go. This is what it was looking like. And then it came good. And once it came good, it's been good ever since. Thank you, FEELWORLD, so much for sending this to me. It has been a joy to review this monitor. And some reviews, not always a joy. But this review, FEELWORLD, thanks so much. Really appreciate your support. There's links in the description below. You can pick up one of these for yourself today. And it would be the one that I buy if I was in that space of just going out and doing little projects. I just want something there for those occasional times that I need it. Hope this review has been helpful, and I will see you in the next one. Once you like and subscribe. Bye. I got to caffeinate as we go through. Parcel or pouch that you put them in.